Yo, welcome to my channel Ward Draws a Lot. Obviously I'm Ward, or I wouldn't have named it Ward Draws a Lot. The other day I was sitting around thinking about how cool different cartoon styles are, as well as anime styles. So then I thought, what if I took some anime characters and then put them in some popular Western cartoons? And I thought that would be pretty fun, so that's exactly what I did. So I decided to do 3 different characters for this video, and one that just stayed in my head was Sephiroth. The entire time I was like, okay, I really want to do him, but what world do I put him in? And then like it popped into my head, what about Gravity Falls? Because it's so different from what he originally looks like, and maybe he would fit into that universe really well, especially because it deals with a lot of the stuff of the unknown, and on top of that, a lot of folklore and myths that were across the land. So the idea of Sephiroth being like one of the last Cetra in his universe, and then possibly in the Gravity Falls universe, them discovering him and thinking about what he's doing in that time zone, and etc, etc. I thought that would all kind of go together really well. So the main difference between Gravity Falls and the way Sephiroth is already drawn, besides the whole Western and Eastern animation thing, is that it is extremely simplified. Everything in Gravity Falls is much more straightforward, so there's not a lot of detail that you would have to consume in order to understand how the character is, or how heavy, or how light, or how dark, or anything like that, like how their nature is. Instead, they heavily rely more on the personality of the character to push through on that, which they successfully do. Now, that doesn't mean that the character can't have a cool design, because a lot of the characters do look cool. What a lot of the characters actually have, instead of a lot of clothing detail or stuff like that, is there's a great difference in a lot of their body shapes and face shapes, along with how they hold themselves as a character and how that pushes through with their overall design. Now, taking in all those factors, I made sure to apply them to how Sephiroth would look like in that universe. So when it came to his really detailed outfit, I simplified it as much as I possibly could. I still tried to keep a lot of the elements that would make him, like his shoulder pads, the cross little straps that he has across his chest along with the belt, but I didn't do any detailing on them. I just kept them one simple shape. His hair is a much more rounded off, chunky piece of hair instead of fine detailed strands and stuff like that. His eyes were probably one of the most different things that I did in comparison to the Gravity Falls universe, which usually they all just have like a black pupil for the eye. I made them a blue/aqua blue thing because the story of Final Fantasy is that his eyes are that certain color for a certain reason. So that's why I made sure to keep that as a factor in his design, which I think helped push his character a little bit through, because like I stated earlier, there's a little difference between the physical attributes to help push through with the character, and I think I personally successfully managed to keep that. Now, to push the narrative of him being in the universe even farther, I took the drawing over into digital. So I traced over my original drawing, and then afterwards I colored it in accordance to how I colored it in on paper, and then I put him in that world by adding a background in that I thought would suit him the most. So yeah, here's Sephiroth in the Gravity Falls world with everything on fire, just like how I expect him to be. So the next character that I really wanted to do was Tanjiro, and I really wanted to put him in the world of Craig of the Creek. Now, I chose Craig of the Creek because their character design is so, it's great, it's awesome. They include so much different levels of diversity within the show that I thought it would honestly be perfect to put Tanjiro in that universe. Not only that, but I feel like Tanjiro's story, although it's very tragic and sad in all reality, would fit kind of well with the kids of the creek. And I say that because a lot of the time they have their own little sections or groups of friends that they hang out with, but they also all come together when they want to and just chill and hang out. They're also all pretty understanding of each other's likes and how different each other's families are and stuff like that, so I feel like he would almost be welcomed in by friends like Craig, and Kelsey or JP. So I think that would be like a really cute addition to that universe, even though his story is really sad. They obviously would have to change it for the show, but yeah, that's what I think. Now, when I was making Tanjiro's character, I made sure to keep the ethnicity as a part of the design, strictly because in the show, that's kind of what they do. So everybody looks different for the reason of genetics, just plain and simple. So I based him off of a few characters that also would have possibly some of the same genetic lineage as him, and then went upon from there. I also made sure when I was doing his design that it was not overly complicated but showed his personality through, because the amount of different designs that they have in that show, it was so hard to kind of come up with almost like a generalization of how to draw in that style. So I made sure to keep the same kind of face shape that they do give to everybody, which is this little pudgy face and then really big expressive eyes, along with the outfit that would definitely push his character through probably the most, because a lot of the kids in the show actually are sectioned off with their different outfits as to who they are. You have like the snooty kids, then you have the Boy Scouts, and a whole bunch of other different crowds, and then you could definitely tell who they are from that. So I made sure to keep his design in there. I didn't draw Nezuko just because it would obviously be daytime in the creek, and they're not allowed to go out into the creek at night, so there's that factor that I just made sure to keep her in the box for. Although Tanjiro is 15 years old, usually everybody in the creek is around 17 or 18 or under, so he would be hanging out with some of the older kids, but that's not necessarily entirely true, because a lot of the time in the show, the older kids and the younger kids hang out, and they get into a whole bunch of, like, not problems, but situations. So just like with Sephiroth, I wanted to push the narrative even farther that they are in that universe, so I took a picture of the drawing, and then traced over it. Afterwards, I filled in with color, and I made sure to keep in mind how the coloring style might be for the show, and that's when I slapped the background on of the creek, and yeah, there's Tanjiro. I think he actually looks like he fits in this world really well, and he looks super adorable, so I'm really happy with that one. Okay, so the last character I wanted to do was Todoroki, and I honestly wanted to put him in the Adventure Time universe. I think the idea of Todoroki being a hero and then Finn being a vigilante would work actually really well together, because then they can go out into the field and then basically just fight the bad guys together. I also think Todoroki's design, the half hot, half ice thing, would fit really well with that universe, because there's just so much weird stuff happening, and there's just so many different kinds of people that are just like made of candy or fire or lemons, and they fit so well in the universe because they don't make any sense normally to be a character, that having someone like Todoroki in that world would actually be pretty okay. Now, for the design in the show, it's extremely simple. There are just really basic shapes of circles for heads, squares for bodies, and then usually noodle arms and noodle legs. So I made sure to apply that to Todoroki as best as possible. There was one thing that I did change about the design technically, but you know, it's like a small thing. Usually in Adventure Time, they just have regular black pupils. I did do one in like the bluish color that he has for one of his eyes, in order to help push the narrative that like he is different than everyone else, which, you know, like it didn't even need to be pushed any further because he's half fire, half ice, but I just wanted to throw that in there as like a cool character design thing, which I think still fits pretty well within that world. One thing I did forget, however, and I'm really upset about this because I'm just looking at the footage now and realizing it, is I forgot to do the burn mark by his eye, but I don't think it looks too bad even like without it, so I'm okay with it, but I'm really upset that that was a key part of his design that I kept out because my head went poo-poo. So yeah, here he is with the background that I put from the show, and I think it suits him extremely well. So yeah, those are the three characters that I ended up doing from different universes. I personally like all three of them to the point where I can't choose which one I like the most, and I'm constantly wishy-washy on if I like Todoroki more, or Sephiroth, or Tanjiro, because they all actually look pretty good in those worlds. Let me know if you have a favorite between the three of them, or if you like all three, or if you disliked all three because you thought the design was too whatever. Let me know in the comments if you actually have an idea as to what it's like. So, thanks for watching, and remember, I love you. Goodbye.